We bring Mark Eckel into the conversation and ask that very question. Mark, why did they sign Sam Bradford?
I have no idea. Well, I mean, the easy answer is they didn't know they were going to be able to move up to number 2 and get Carson Wentz. But that's not my point. The point of my column that I wrote was the biggest decision the Eagles front office and Howie Roseman in particular faced was to decide whether or not Sam Bradford is your guy. You had to think. I mean, you had time to think about it. Is this our guy? Can we get to or win a Super Bowl with Sam Bradford? Now, if you answered that question yes, then by all means re-sign him to a nice contract and then use your other resources, a draft, free agency, whatever, to build around him to get to that point where you can get to a Super Bowl. If you answered that question no, Sam Bradford is just a guy. He's not the guy, and we're never going to go to a Super Bowl with Sam Bradford, then let him go. Why waste your time, his time, and your money on a guy that you don't think is the answer? Let him go. Instead, they kind of did both.
Yes, so you're right. They kind of did both. So a lot of people have criticized him because of the money, and I've kind of tried to say, look, you got to take his skill level and the monetary value out of this and just ask the question, was he lied to, as he has kind of said? Would he have signed the deal here knowing what he now knows? I don't know if that's a fair question or not, but what does the amount of money that they gave him say about what they thought about him?
It's the whole thing's confusing because they paid him, albeit it's a 2-year deal, but it's $35 million over 2 years, which puts him, he's not in the top, but he doesn't belong in the top of quarterbacks. It's what a good starting quarterback gets. I mean, he's getting what a average to above average starting quarterback gets these days. That's a pretty good deal. My story wasn't about Bradford and what he's doing. My story was about the fact that, yes, there is a mess now. The Eagles have there's a mess has been created, but I think the mess was created by the Eagles, not so much by Sam Bradford.
All right, we're talking with Mark Eckel here on the Sports Bash. This thing has been crazy. So, to you, Mark, what are the possible resolutions to this?
I don't know. There's none of them end well, I don't think. I mean, one is, option one is Bradford. Bradford puts his tail between his legs, swallows his pride, comes back in, apologizes to his teammates, I guess, to the fan. I mean, really, he hasn't done anything wrong yet in terms of he's missed some voluntary stuff. I mean, but I mean that's option one. Bradford says, I overreacted. I'm sorry for missing some time here. Blah blah blah. Now I'm ready to go out and lead us to the playoffs. Whatever. I don't know. That's a possibility, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's dug in a little too deep for that. Option two is he retires. He just doesn't play. He doesn't come to the Eagles and he sits out. And I mean, this is a guy that said, he's on the record as saying when he hurt his knee the second time, he thought about retirement. But guys are retiring, younger and younger every year now. He has plenty of money. People say, well, he would turn that money down. The guy has made $78 million, and I'm sure he hasn't spent it all, and I'm sure he's put some, he's made some money off of that money. So he's set for his grandkids are set for life. If he really feels that strongly, I mean, that's again, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it's a possibility. And then the third one, which would probably be the best situation for everybody except the one victim here, would be another quarterback around the league. Nothing happens until camp, and then some team loses their starting quarterback and gets a little desperate and trades for him.
Mark Eckel with us. Mark, so if Sam Bradford does retire, then what happens to that signing bonus money?
Oh, that goes back to the Eagles.
Okay. And then do you think that Howie Roseman feels differently now than he did on March 1st about this Sam Bradford situation? If so, what's Howie thinking now?
Oh yeah, I can't read Howie's mind. I don't know what he was thinking then. I mean, again, I can't be. My whole thing is, and not just in any company, in any business, any sports or non-sports, the decisions that you make, you have to look ahead. You can't make a decision today and not look at what that decision is going to mean, months and years from now. I mean, when they re-signed Bradford, again, I'm not the biggest Bradford fan. I would answer that question. No, I don't think Sam Bradford is a quarterback that's going to take you to a Super Bowl. I just don't. I think he's an average guy. I think there's a lot of Sam Bradfords in the league. So I wouldn't have re-signed him. I would have let him test free agency, and I would have moved on. And whether it's Carson Wentz, Paxton Lynch, whoever in the draft, and just tried to build again. When they did re-sign him, I didn't kill them for doing it, but I said, okay, they must think differently of Sam than I do. But then I was shocked when they made the moves up to get another quarterback. Like, okay, now you're not making any sense to me. I mean, am I the only person that feels this way? I can't wrap my head around the fact that they paid Sam Bradford, they went out and got Chase Daniel, and they traded up to get the Carson Wentz.
No. I mean, we had Andrew Brandt on last week, and he said it's unprecedented. He's never seen a team put that much money into free agency in one position and then draft that same position that high.
And not just draft it, trade 3 players and 5 picks to draft.
With that being said, Mark,
I'm glad Andrew Brandt, who I have a lot of respect for, also, because I wrote that story, and fans aren't really, not that they're killing me on it, but they're not picking up my point that.
Oh, they're killing me.
Are they?
Well, I've kind of said, look, I understand why Bradford is upset, and I feel that he was misled and lied to. And of course,
we don't know that, but yeah, okay,
just my opinion. I feel that he was. My point has kind of been, Mark Eckel's with us, NJ.com. My point has kind of been, Mark, that I don't think he would have signed the contract if his agent asked the right questions. Meaning, at 13, hey, any opportunity, if someone calls you to move up, would you take it? If the Eagles said, nope, Sam's our guy, he signs. If they say, yes, we would move up if the opportunity presented itself, and if Sam signs, then that's his own fault. But he's saying he got lied to, which tells me he wouldn't have signed that deal if he thought there was any possibility they drafted a quarterback higher than number 13.
I agree with that. I could definitely agree with that. Here's my other thing, though, is, and I don't know who else. Like, I know you're not allowed, quote unquote, allowed to gauge the interest in your client until free agency begins, or that little weekend prior to free agency beginning. But let's be honest, Tom Condon didn't. This isn't his first player that he's had up as a free agent. Tom Condon's one of the top agents in the league, so he talks to teams. Tom Condon kind of knew what the market was going to be for Sam Bradford prior to re-signing his deal with the Eagles. So he knew, I would think he knew what was out there and what kind of interest there would be in Sam if he hit the free agency market. And I don't think there was going to be a big market for him. I really don't. Maybe Denver.
Well, one thing Andrew Brandt told us, which I was surprised by, was that the money that the Eagles gave him indicated that Condon sold them on the fact that he had another suitor and that they felt pressure that they would lose him, and that's why he got that amount of money.
It's possible. I mean, the only possibility I could see, but at that point, Denver didn't know they were losing Osweiler, so maybe it was Houston. Maybe Houston would have gone after Bradford instead of Osweiler. That's a possibility, I guess. I'm trying to look around at the teams that would have had interest. I don't know. I mean, I guess that one makes the most sense that I just said. Now, I think maybe since Houston paid Osweiler quite a bit, and he's very unproven. Not that Bradford's proven much either, but at least he's had more experience. I mean, that was a team. But again, I'm not putting this on Bradford. I'm putting it on, like everybody says to me, nobody put a gun to Bradford's head and made him sign that contract. Well, nobody put a gun to the Eagles' head and made them offer him the contract.
Mark Eckel with us. Mark.
And I've argued that as well, that, look, the Eagles indicated by that money that they valued him. There must have been something in that conversation that he felt valued. And I, again, Pete, think that he would not have signed that contract if he knew that his replacement was going to be on this roster.
So I agree. I agree 100% with that. But again, I'm not looking at it from Bradford's point. I'm looking at it from the Eagles. What were and are the Eagles thinking? Why would you give Bradford that kind of money and give Chase Daniel pretty good money and trade all those assets to get other I just can't wrap my head around this. I've seen a lot of things in my 30 years of covering the Eagles, and this one tops. This is different than any of it.
30 years of covering football, Mark Eckel. So did you see the Paxton Lynch introduction in Denver and the way that Mark Sanchez is handling that? And can Eagles fans draw a comparison, or is that unfair on how Sanchez is handling that versus how Bradford is handling Carson Wentz being in Philly?
Well, I'll say this about Mark Sanchez as a guy, and he was here a couple of years covered. And this is not, I'm not demeaning Sam Bradford here, but Mark Sanchez has been through. Mark Sanchez is really the ultimate in a professional. He's handled everything well. He's handled everything from when the Jets brought Tebow in to coming here, and then first with Nick Foles going in when Foles got hurt, and then last. Mark just handles things very well. He could be a politician. He really could. He actually looks like Marco Rubio, but doesn't he? I mean, am I wrong? Couldn't they be cousins or brothers or something? But I mean, so Mark Sanchez, the way he's just very good at this. I don't know, this is nature. Sam could have handled this better. I mean, while I blame the Eagles for the mess, yeah, I mean, Sam could have handled it. He is coming across as, to the fans especially, that see this guy making the kind of money that he's making and has made, and now he's complaining about a rookie coming in. I mean, it doesn't paint him in a good light. With that said, I'm with you guys in the fact that we don't know what was said to him behind closed doors. We don't know, what Howie Roseman told him, what Jeffrey Lurie told him. We don't, and like you said, actions always speak louder than words anyway. And when you're paying a guy $35 million, you kind of think, okay, I'm their guy, right?
Yep, and this is, as Mark, as you mentioned, I agree with you. This is a very odd story that there's not a lot of precedent for around the NFL. Mark Eckel, NJ.com. Read his piece on why did the Eagles sign Sam Bradford. We don't really know the answer, but we can try to dive into the minds of the Eagles and Sam Bradford. Thanks, Mark.
No problem, guys. Anytime.